Hello everybody, welcome back to another YouTube video. I'm Sean's Mapping or the Sultanate Empire, and in today's video we are going to be doing a scenario where the Japanese Empire from World War II comes in to Ada's Pro's WICSO. Now, as we can see here, many countries have disappeared. I believe it's the Unionist Japanese are not gone. They're up in the north over here now. So we'll be looking at several different wars that takes place. The first war that we're going to be looking at is the Japanese Empire um, finishing off the Unionist up here in the north part of southern part of the Siberian area. Now, the Unionists aren't it's not the same Japanese Empire. They have no more allies, or it's not the same Japanese Unionists. They have no allies. They're not a part of the Unionist movement. It's more or less just what remains of their influence and what remains under their control. They will quickly fall over to the Japanese Empire, and all of this will quickly go over to them. Now, the Unionists are very mad that they did lose one of their very good allies over here in the Pacific and in the Asian regions. So they're a little mad about that one right there. They're not too happy about it. And they do end up losing a good ally. But the Unionists are most mad about the complete loss of Southeast Asia and Oceania for the most part, as Indonesia was completely absorbed into the empire. The Philippines, northern parts of the Papua New Guinea area, Southeast Asia in its entirety completely gone. The alliance that was down here between the Philippines, Vietnam, and South China um, is pretty much just down to South China now. If we look here at the military alliance layer, now Japan is of course fascist. The Japanese Empire was of course fascist, so they are on thin ice, to say the least. They're on very thin ice. Also, we can see China is very much diminished in their power. Also, another thing is that China has lost their capital, which was along the coastline over here, which means China already is in a very unstable situation. But what we will be see happening, or what we will see happening, is we will be seeing the Japanese Empire declare war on what remains of the um, southern China country, as they will quickly push into these areas, capturing several major cities. They will connect up with their naval invasions. They will connect up and take the major cities over here and the capital of South China. And they will push to right about up here. Once they start meeting resistance, they stop. They do the same thing with what remains of China over here. They quickly and swiftly declare war. What in the world is going on? Why is all of this happening? No. Don't you just love it when paint.net doesn't like working? Yay. Back to the video. So we will be seeing as they also declare war on China and push into China, connecting up again their naval invasions and their invasions in Southeast Asia with the main invasion up north, as they quickly push against the South China country, and also China itself. But there is a difference, because in this world, the civilian population does actually have nationalism towards their country, unlike in ours, where they didn't have much. But we will see some good come from this as the Chinese are able to make a invasion of their own, connecting up with their encircled forces, and they push into Japan's controlled areas, taking a lot of this territory like so. But unfortunately, they are pushed back pretty much immediately up here in the north, unable to make any ground in the northern area. But in the south, with their encircled forces, they hold a strong defense, able to hold this area for a little longer. But it is all just in due time as the Japanese commence their invasion of the northern parts of the Chinese area, taking two major cities. I almost said several, even though it's just two. They take a third. They continue to push down towards the Chinese capital and just push down the front in general. And this is where we begin to see it happen. The Chinese begin to get pushed out of their encircle area over here, and eventually they do. But an encirclement is still made as at the same time as they were pushing on that area in the center, troops are also pushing down in this area, and they're able to encircle a big chunk of Chinese forces right in the center region, with most being killed and very little being surrendered. Now, the Japanese Empire is still committing their atrocities that they committed in our timeline, in our world. So they are definitely still doing that, so people definitely still don't like them. But in this, it's a lot worse as, this world has went through a lot versus ours. Now, we will continue to see them push, and eventually they'll take over the capital of China, and we will just kind of see the rest of China fold over to the Japanese Empire. Now, this is very unsettling for the rest of the world, as one of the world's main powers, one of the world's founders of the AN, has just collapsed under the weight of a foreign empire that just appeared in this world out of nowhere. Now we will see as the Japanese forces finish off the South China forces. Now I know what some of you are saying. How could the Japanese be able to do this? In our timeline, they failed. In our timeline, the only reason the Japanese failed was because of the Allies and America. If Japan had to focus on one front line, they would be perfectly and entirely fine. And that's exactly what is happening here. They get to focus on one front line, as they don't need to look anywhere else because they were only fighting over here. And I mean, America isn't really whole currently, it's pretty divided right now, so it doesn't really matter. Now, we'll look at the peace treaty of the Japanese Empire, and that is them pretty much just taking the entirety of their occupied areas, per to be expected of the Japanese Empire. They form this big, massive empire over here in Asia, pretty much taking the entirety of Asia for themselves, which at this point poses a threat to the world, and we will see a major alliance be formed by the oceanic Asian countries and even some North American countries after after the Japanese Empire does one thing. And what is that one thing? Well, let's get over to Alaska and North America and see what that one thing is. Alrighty, here we are over Alaska and America. And well, that one thing is taking their newly built military after about 3 years of build up and preparation, they invade the entirety of the coastline of Western America, this Western American Californian country down here, and they take all of this like so. But the world comes together and tells the Japanese Empire to halt their invasions or suffer the consequences. So, we'll be looking at it here, and the Japanese will in fact be halting their invasions. They will not be continuing, and they stop, which will see them essentially take again all of their occupied territory and stopping like so. And now, with that, the Japanese realize they need to find themselves some friends. So, let's look at it and let's see who the Japanese have as their friends in 3, 2, and 1. And alrighty, here we are. We will see that Japan is able to get themselves 3 friends. This country right here, the seafoam green Serbian country, Siberian country, Serbia is over here, Siberian country up here, and this country over here. Now you're probably wondering, how would Japan be able to get these friends? Well, simple. They threatened them. They said either you join us or we'll attack you. And all 3 of these countries, both being fairly weak and not that strong, would rather be in their alliance than get invaded and possibly killed. Now, this Heart Alliance that has appeared on the map is known as the Alliance of the World. It is being led by India, Tibet, and America, and it has several members, like so. Then you of course have the alliances that this world has already had, like the Square Alliance, the Mesopotamian Alliance, the Triangle Alliance, the Unionist Alliance, which is already fairly mad with Japan because they lost 2 members to Japan. But we'll be seeing the Japanese yet again do their thing, and this time with an alliance and friends. The world still tries to restrict their movements, but not wanting another world global war like the last four. They let the Japanese do what they want. And essentially, like in our timeline during World War II, they do appeasement with the Japanese, saying that they could take these lands and no more. But the Japanese, being power hungry and feeling like they were wronged by the world, even though this isn't their world, and this world's very confusing to them because a lot of countries that existed are now gone, we will be seeing as they quickly take over Bangladesh and not listening to the appeasement, which stated they could take Bangladesh and one singular country in North America, and that's all they were allowed to invade. They invaded into more countries after they completely assimilated and took over the Bangladesh country down here, like so. But what we will also see them do is we will see them invade into this country right over here, this green one, right up here. But the thing is, they don't attack it and invade it for themselves. They are actually giving this land over to one of their allies to make their allies a little bit stronger. So, like something just like so. And the country that is getting all of this territory, well, not all of it, Japan will be taking all of these parts right down here. with this gold country getting a singular major city and the capital up in the northern parts of the country. Now, after that, this country right here is about to join the Alliance of the World, but unfortunately, before they can, the Japanese invade them, quickly taking over their capital, and since they have no other major cities left, they pretty much fall over to the Japanese in an instant as soon as the capital is taken. Something that looks something like that. So, we will see them just completely assimilate this country as well. Looking something like that. Now, this is where the leaders of the Alliance of the World realize that their appeasement strategy is not working, so they straight out flat just threaten Japan with war if they do not stop their conquest and invasion. But Japan continues it by simply just going over to North America and beginning their invasion of Alaska, which the or sorry, not Alaska, but I meant the Mexican terrorist organization down here, which has in recent years and in decades and recent centuries, they've worked to become a legitimized country, which at this point I do believe they are a legitimized country. And we will be seeing as the Japanese invade them. Now, as the world prepares to go to war, the Japanese reminds them in the treaty of their appeasement that they made. The Alliance of the World said that they could invade one country in Asia and one country in America. This is their one country in America that they are invading, which the Alliance of the World is looking at, and they're like, crap, we did say that. So unfortunately, these guys will be taken over, but don't think that they died not fighting, because this is one of the most unstable areas of the Japanese Empire to date, due to the fact that, well, they used to be terrorists, and these guys are very nationalistic towards their own country, as they fought very hard back in the day, and their country was pretty much founded on a terrorist group, and they worked hard to legitimize and become an actual country and government instead of just a ragtag organization that exist as terrorists and are known as terrorists. So they would not be willing to give up their freedom that easily. So this area would be the most unstable parts of the Japanese Empire, but luckily for the Japanese Empire, it'll be fairly okay. Now, the Japanese Empire will, of course, be forced to stop their invasions due to all of this, but they will do one thing, which will just raise the tensions even more, and that is their invasion of the Australian country right down here. Now, you're probably wondering to yourselves, is the World Alliance going to get involved? And they most certainly are. I mean, they've already been involved in all of the wars following the creation of the Alliance. They've been supporting the countries, and they're definitely supporting Australia. And it is at this point where the World Alliance realizes that Japan is not going to stop their conquest. They are just going to keep taking, attacking, trying to find ways around their little alliance here. And it is at this point where the World Alliance, after the Australian capital falls over to Japanese forces, realizes that the only way to stop the Japanese is to attack them and invade them and essentially destroy their empire. We'll be seeing them invite the Australians into the World Alliance and they begin preparing for the war that is to come. But the war never comes, as the Australian leadership were all killed and executed by the Japanese after the falling of the capital because none of them were able to escape. They were all captured and taken as prisoners of war. Whoopsie doo. Within the Japanese Empire. And eventually, we will see the Australians completely fall over after about 2 years of good fighting and the support of the World Alliance. They fight for 2 hard, long years, but eventually they are first forced to surrender as the Japanese are just too strong for them and too much for their forces to handle, and eventually they do just collapse over, with the Japanese completely and utterly taking everything. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, will be all for today's video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, go down beneath the video and join and hit the like button. If you want to be notified anytime I upload, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon if you want to be notified the next time a video pops up on my channel or the next time I upload. If you would like to see a part 2 where the Japanese Empire goes to war with the World Alliance and maybe even other alliances get pulled in, either supporting the Japanese or going against the Japanese, and if you basically want to see World War V pop off with a country from World War II being able to achieve their goals of creating their empire and taking over all of Asia and Southeast Asia, like so. Again, if you would like to see a part 2, just let me know down in the comments and I will do a part 2 of this empire scenario. I'm Sean's Mapping, or the